weekend upon us. Showers, Heather Zara says, should clear away by the time the kids hit the street. Maybe a scattered shower here and there, but you should have ample opportunity to get your hands on some candy. Want to welcome to the program our guest this morning, Congressman Michael McCaul from the 10th District here in the great state of Texas. Congressman McCaul is the chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security. Congressman, welcome back to the Salcedo Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's start off with some politics first, and then I want to get into some foreign policy discussion here. Number one, I know you probably saw the debate. I have called on the RNC, Reince Priebus, to stop subjecting our candidates to clearly biased individuals in the what I call the Brian Williams press, and start getting into debate situations where conservative principles can actually be debated as we prep our candidates to face the Democrat in the election cycle. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree. I think, Reince Priebus, the RNC chair, his job is to negotiate the rules and the structure of these debates. This was the most unbalanced line of questioning. And I think, as one of the candidates said, it's like the media is a super PAC for the liberals. I think it was just outrageous, that question. I think Reince needs to step up to the plate or step down from his office, because and I think you're going to see all the candidates kind of coming together and raising this issue with him. I think it was just, it just shows you how biased the media is out there.
Indeed. Let's move on to something that was just happened, as we have been treated to two votes, which conservatives are, and you know what, anybody that has a mind on the debilitating, crippling debt that we have in this country. We have a 2-year budget, a Boehner-Obama deal, and I can throw McConnell in there as well, and the Export-Import Bank, which is the resurrecting of crony capitalism at its worst. How did you vote on both of those measures?
I voted against both of these measures. You vote your district, and you vote the right thing to do. I voted against both of these measures. Number one, Chris, because of the way it was done. In the Ex-Im Bank case, they went around the committee structure. They went around regular order, and they threw this thing on the floor. It is corporate welfare. It's crony capitalism. I voted against the bailout back in the day for the same reason. I don't think the federal government, bailing out big companies and corporations and picking winners and losers. And so I could not in good conscience support that. And then, of course, the debt ceiling, as you mentioned, leadership had a deal with Obama in a matter of days, and then completely bypassed the budget committee. And as the chairman of the full committee, I don't like it when they do that. And they threw it on the floor. It raises the debt ceiling for 2 years with really little in return. There's not a dollar-for-dollar offset. It doesn't fully support our military, which I think is very important right now. And it's like you with your credit card saying, I'm going to make a payment, but how about if you give me just unlimited credit for the next 2 years, and we'll talk in 2 years about this.
Right.
This is highly irresponsible to the taxpayer. Mike Mullen, Admiral Mike Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said that our debt is really the biggest national security risk that we have. And the reason he said that is because this rising debt squeezes out our domestic spending, which goes towards our national defense.
And Congressman, let me interrupt you, by the way. Congressman Michael McCaul, 10th District here in the great state of Texas. This very subject was brought up on the Fox News Channel last night. Have a listen to Brett Baer, the anchor of Special Report, and George Will as they make an analysis on the debt, what you and I are talking about. Listen to this.
George, I said in that national debt piece, and we stand at $18.2 trillion national debt tonight, that we're always, it seems, one election away from getting the big things done. This is going to happen this next session in a presidential election.
And someday they're going to have something other than zero interest rates. That's made big government cheap by making the borrowing cheap. Once we go back to anything like the post-war norm for the cost of borrowing, say 5%, the deficit itself becomes the driver of the deficit, and the budget explodes.
And Congressman, when that happens, it's goodbye America. When you can't pay for everything else because you're financing the interest payments on your massive debt, it all goes to pot, and it seems those who teamed up, Congressman, with all Democrats, because, this is what Democrats do. They like bankrupting the country. This is what they do. So those Republicans, in my view, who in the establishment and those others who cast their votes with Democrats have no claim to the mantle of conservatism, have no claim to the mantle of being a Republican, and are contributing to the ultimate demise of the country. Tell me where I'm going wrong.
Well, I think you're right. The interest alone on the debt is crushing. And if you look at the trajectory of the pie chart, the interest is going to take up a lot of the pie. We're not going to have any money left to fund our military because it's all going to be entitlement spending, which is the key to this thing. If we can't reform entitlement spending, if we can't reform the tax code and get this debt down, we're on a path to destruction, which is why I couldn't support this, Chris. I thought it was, again, irresponsible. I do think it's a defining vote. I had a lot of pressure, obviously put on me by leadership, being a chairman, and, I'm not going to bow down to that. I'm going to do the right thing for my constituents. And I think I did the right thing for my constituents here.
All right, let's turn to what's in the news lately. Congressman Michael McCaul, he is the chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security. China and Russia's aggression. Let's deal with the Russian aggression first, since it was highlighted yesterday. Russian bombers came within a mile of the USS Ronald Reagan, and the official story coming out of the administration and some of the military brass is, no big deal. This was no big deal. Yes, we scrambled for F-18 Hornets to intercept them. We were doing joint operations with the South Koreans, but hey, no big deal. I don't believe that, sir. Am I right in having skepticism about how big a deal this is?
No, it's a big deal. I mean, this is the biggest act of aggression by Russia in quite some time, probably since the Afghan war, and they are filling the vacuum. When I talk to retired generals and admirals, they tell me this is what you get when you have a president that can't make a decision. And he sat around for years not coming up with a strategy and a plan to deal with ISIS. And now we have Russia in there. And when I look at their target packages, their strikes, Chris, they're not hitting ISIS with their military strikes. They're hitting these anti-Assad forces in Syria, and they're just doing that to reinforce the regime and prop up Assad, who is their proxy in Syria. And they have these ports there that are of strategic interest. Now we have Iranians in Iraq and Syria, and Cubans. I mean, this is way out of balance now, and this is like the old adage, weakness invites aggression. This is what happens when you don't have a strong commander-in-chief. And we've had it for too long now, and this world has become a far more dangerous place. And I think if you look at the Iraq-Syria problem, the growth of ISIS and the inability to deal with it, now that with the Russians in there, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, perfect segue into talking about the next challenge, which is a Chinese government, which, by the way, just reversed their one-child policy because now they sense a gear up. They're going to need human capital, number one. But here, the administration, to its credit, sends a U.S. destroyer to sail within 12 miles of this illegal bases, these illegal bases on these man-made islands the Chinese are setting up in the South China Sea. And then when asked about it, the administration tries to hide the fact that we did this. I just don't understand. It seems that Mr. Obama's audience is the foreign adversaries that we have rather than the American people.
Well, this is a false narrative of this president. He constantly downplays the threat, whether it's the threat of Islamist terrorism, whether it goes back to Fort Hood, workplace violence, Benghazi video, we're winning, ISIS, not a problem, JV team. And now, you have this naked aggression by Russia, but that seems to be okay. And now this advancement by China. I think they smell weakness. They're taking advantage of that weakness. And now they're expanding into these islands in the Pacific. And not to mention, Chris, the fact that China breached our federal government and stole, in an act of espionage, 20 million security clearances, national security clearances from 20 million Americans. that they are using now to exploit to compromise individuals in espionage. So, and that goes completely unchecked. There's been no response, no consequence to that, whatsoever. I think we just really need a commander-in-chief that can lead the world in the post-World War II as a superpower, lead the world as a superpower, and not let these other countries get away with this stuff.
Last question really quickly, Congressman, because I'm up against the clock here.
Yeah.
If the Chinese are allowed to set up military bases illegally in the South China Sea, will that be a threat to not only commerce, but also a threat to the United States' interests abroad?
It is a threat, and it's a threat to Taiwan and other countries in the region because it's an act of aggression that's going unchecked. And I'm afraid this administration is just going to let it happen without any consequence. I would respond like Reagan did. He would not let aggression stand in the world and made that the clear policy. The problem is there's no clear policy, foreign policy throughout the world, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and this is what you get when you don't have a good foreign policy. So we got to win the White House back. That's one thing I can say.
The consequence of electing liberals, folks, you get a weaker and diminished America. Congressman Michael McCaul from the 10th District here in the great state of Texas, sir. Appreciate you carving out time for the Salcedo Show.
Yeah, really, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy.